Our next guest is the Executive Director of the Society for Professional Women at the Mainline Chamber of Commerce. She is also the Board Chair for the Delaware County Regional Advisory Board for Big Brother, Big Sister Independence Region, as well as a Board Member and Programming Chair for Girl Spark. She has spent years working both publicly and behind the scenes to promote growth and change, empowerment and support, and ultimately helping countless individuals to overcome adversity and to create a life of positivity. Someone we have a lot to learn from. Please welcome Nicole Stephenson.
Hello, my name is Nicole Stephenson. I am the Executive Director of the Society of Professional Women at the Mainline Chamber of Commerce. I am really happy to be with you today to share how to feel happy in a world that how to be happy in a world that feels broken. So one of the first things that I wanted to share with you all is connection. And for my introverts and extroverts, that can mean many different things. So I want to make sure that I am clear that connection doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in a room full of people. When I talk about connection, my first inkling is to think about volunteerism. So the way that I connect with individuals is I like to volunteer my time in the areas in the world that I feel are broken. Not necessarily to fix the world. I know I'm not going to fix the world, but just doing my one small part. And so sometimes, when you think about things that are broken, you wonder, what can I do? What is something that I can do that's small that can make a big impact? And so when I volunteer my time, most frequently I find other people that volunteer their time for the same thing. And it really empowers you and inspires you. And it makes you feel good, right? It makes you happy. So then you find other like-minded people that are volunteering for the same cause, and you think, hey, I might have put my one small part in, somebody else put their small part in, and now there's this bigger impact across the region or in your own small community. And so for me, connecting with people in community and volunteerism really makes me happy, because I know that whatever is broken is going to be fixed one piece at a time, thanks to the people that are contributing their time and energy into something that makes them happy. And finding people that have that kind of purpose together really does make a big difference in your own life, as well as others. Another part of community and connection that I like to think about is during 9/11, I remember Mr. Rogers, and that's, showing my age here of what my time frame is and who I look up to. He said, look for the helpers. So when something feels broken and you feel like, no one cares, you look for the people that care. And I'm not talking just in a catastrophic event or a natural disaster, where you do see that quite frequently when you think during a natural disaster, how are these people going to get out of this? And then you see the little lifeboats and you're like, oh, okay, there's people that are helping. I'm talking about daily things where you can find inspiration. So just yesterday, I'm in the shopping parking lot, I'm emptying my cart, and a gentleman next to me with his wife says, I'm going to take my cart, I'll take yours too. And, it's so funny because I was actually running somewhere and running late. So I was like relieved. I'm like, oh, there's still good people in the world, right? He could have easily taken his cart back with someone else. But I remember he was like trying to get the carts together and they weren't going together. And then he ran his own foot over, and I laughed to myself. And here's my musical theater excitement. I love the musical Wicked. It's one of my favorites. And I said to him, no good deed goes unpunished. So that's actually a really bad thing to say, right? We don't want to discourage people helping, but my point is that I don't think he's going to be discouraged from me saying, don't do any more good deeds, you're going to get punished, because it made us laugh together and it bonded us in that short period of time, and it made us both smile. So even in, a situation where someone's trying to help me, I left the parking lot and it just made me laugh to myself, because I'm like, man, here's this nice guy trying to do a nice thing, restoring my hope in the world, and we run over his foot, right? So it just made me laugh because, that's the reality, right, of life, is that sometimes things are broken, right? And we can't always fix them, but we have to look for the small highlights. We have to look for the things that'll make us laugh or bring us together. And so I really want to encourage you to look for the helpers, right? Whether it's in a big circumstance or a small circumstance, look for the people that are going to help, that can help you possibly turn your day around. Speaking of bad days, it reminds me of something my mom used to say, which is, bad things come in threes, right? And that is such a terrible view of the world, because once one bad thing happens in your day, you're like waiting for the next bad thing, right? And we shouldn't be waiting for the next bad thing to happen to us. We have to control our own destiny in that sense, where you don't want to wait for the next bad thing, right? However, I think it's important to acknowledge that those bad things do happen, and that's okay. But think about grief. That's the other part of the connection and community that I wanted to discuss, is that grief comes and goes in waves most times. And for me, I find someone else, and I'm quoting a lot of other people here with not attributing it, but I remember someone had once said to me, you can visit grief, but you can't live there. And that was a really powerful sentiment that I really appreciated, because I think it's important to visit grief. I think it's important to acknowledge the broken, because it's reality, right? So we can't always be happy. That's not realistic, but we can try to move forward quicker. Right? We could try to be happy faster, but I think that it's important, especially in the days where we talk about mental health and surrounding mental health, that, sometimes it's a chemical imbalance. It's not always necessarily something that's inflicted. It could just be something that you're feeling from hormones or whatever. So I think it's important to acknowledge grief. I think it's important to acknowledge that you're not happy, but I don't think that we can live there, because then it becomes a pattern and it can, become dangerous. Or, I have a daughter. So for me, I'm very fortunate that I have someone else. Like I said, connection and community is important to me. Connecting with people really pulls me out of the darkness when I have those dark days. So for me, it's always thinking of my daughter, but I'm very honest with my daughter. So some days I say, listen, mom's having a sad day. I'm just not in the mood, or I'm not happy right now. And she's always really good about bringing me out of that, or giving me the space I need. And that it's important for me to show her that even though I have one bad day, it's not going to be a culmination of bad days. And so if I have a bad day one day, I make an extra effort to be more present the next day, and make sure she knows that you can recover from having this sadness, right? So that's really important for me, to make sure that we're doing that. And so I've always found a lot of comfort in people, whether that's my family or friends, and even strangers. And I do that by finding people that not necessarily are always like-minded. Sometimes it's nice to open up your world to other people and really experience what they're experiencing. Volunteerism, like I said, is really important, because if you're all in one mission or one cause, and you're hearing these things that people are struggling with, or the challenges that they're dealing with, sometimes it'll give you a view of your own. I remember somebody said to me, throw all your problems in a pile, and everybody at the table will throw their pile in, and you'll probably grab yours back, right? So it's important sometimes, not necessarily a comparison is the thief of joy, as they say. I'm not saying you should compare yourself to others, but maybe look around and understand the positives in your life more than the negatives. Like, focus on what you do have and not what you don't have. I say that to my daughter every day since she was a child before bed. Like, be thankful for what you do have, not what you don't have, right? Because there's always going to be something that you don't have, right? So you have to try to find things to focus on that, will make you happy, right? And that is really acknowledging the things in your life that are important to you and that make you happy. And for me, that's people. So if I'm having a sad day, sometimes I might call up a friend. I might go for coffee. I will tell my husband if I need time away from, the family life. If I'm at work and I'm overstressed, I might take a mental health day. Make sure that you're taking time for you, and doing the things that bring you joy. And when I say, especially for my introverts, which, doesn't necessarily mean they don't like to be around people, but if it's something where you can live in a memory of a person. So maybe you are sensitive to people and you don't want to be around a lot of people, then maybe you can meditate and you can take some of your memories with you of maybe a close friend or a family member, especially if you're going through grief. You can really visit with them in your meditation, really take that time to experience that joy and say, what's going to make me happy? This memory is going to make me happy. Try to, when you're taking in your memories, see the good in the memory that you have, not necessarily make you more sad and go down a path. So for example, we lost my father-in-law. He never got to meet my daughter. So we often find ourselves, being sad around certain events that he's not present, but we try to incorporate him into the day somehow. So my husband and I, we just finished Christmas, and we were putting our stockings together, and My husband actually was crying for the first time in a long time about his dad because we were putting the stocking together and we were arguing because my husband wanted to wrap every single item in the stocking. And that's like my lazy thing where I just want to shove like nail polishes in the stocking. And he's like, but my dad, he used to do that. He would go to the dollar store and he would wrap every little thing. And it was so much fun because we had like 50 presents to open versus one, even little tiny like nail polishes inside or whatever. And so it made us laugh, but then it made him cry because he remembered how much time his dad took. But it was a really beautiful way to incorporate him back into our lives and have our daughter experiencing something that would have been a gift that he would have given her, even though he's not here. And so, a lot of things that we do, we focus on memories of the past. And when we're looking forward to the future, we have to remember to incorporate them. And so if you're feeling like the world is really heavy and you don't want to let that outside in, you really have to stay internal with yourself and the people around you to make sure that you're protecting your energy. And that's another really important part about connection and community. I like to surround myself with people that I want to emulate, right? So if someone's really positive and they're really excited about life and they're really driven, I am then drawn to them, right? And I really am a firm believer that you attract the attention that you seek, right? And so for myself, when I put myself out there, which I know could be scary for some people sometimes, when I put myself out there, I notice that more people also do the same. And I start making connections with people that inspire me and are driven themselves. And we both, can connect on that level. And then therefore we can hold each other accountable too. So it's really exciting when I start meeting people that can be accountable and hold me accountable so that I can, reach what I'm trying to do. And on the opposite end of that, if I do not meet the expectation or I fail, so to speak, right, and I'm feeling down on myself and I'm feeling broken and I'm like, I didn't get where I wanted to be, then I can really look to someone else who's on that same path or journey that maybe failed too. And they could say, hey, this happened to me. And now I'm here, and they can motivate me to keep going. So it's really important to make sure that you're reaching out to other people for support. I think a lot of times people don't like to ask for help. So another way that I feel happy when I feel broken is I'm not afraid to ask for help. So I think it's really important that people should acknowledge that more frequently. I think a lot of us think that you're more successful when you can brag about the fact that you did it on your own, but I don't think that's realistic either. I think that's kind of something people say, but I'm not sure is necessarily true, because I think that people help us even when we don't know they're helping us, especially if you're a lifelong learner. And so for me, I really think that helping others is just as important as helping yourself, and asking for help is important. So sometimes it makes me happier to ask for help because then I'm not struggling as long and I'm not, doing the work twice if it's already been done by someone else and something like that. So for me, connection and community is so important to my happiness. I rely on people a lot and I'm very vocal about that. I don't think there's any shame in asking for help. I don't think there's any shame in sharing that you need people to get by. I think that that's what community is. That's why we all live in a community. That's what works well. And I think giving back to others, you get what's given back tenfold. When you give, it also provides you a little bit of confidence too, I feel like, because if we're able to give of our time and our knowledge to others, especially people who are struggling in other times, sometimes it really helps us to see how far we've come and how far we've grown, because we could say, oh, wow, I've been there. I've had this struggle. I've had this challenge. This has worked for me. And then when you see someone else doing it and you help them, you get this sort of pride and also this sense of purpose, where you're like, wow, I really helped someone get through a hard time. And, I was there once, and now I feel like I've kind of come full circle, right? I've closed that loop in my life on that broken piece. And like I said, it's not about fixing what's broken in a sense that we're not acknowledging that it's there. It's just making it a little easier by being surrounded by people that we care about. And so for me, connection and community has always been something that I've tried to surround myself by. And you could do that, by the way. I want to make sure I give some advice on how to do that, especially for people that aren't aren't necessarily the type of person to go out and say, hey, meet me for coffee or do this. I mean, there are so many ways you can get involved in your community. Like I said, I work for a chamber of commerce. There are other associations, even in industries, there's associations that you can sign up for in your respective field. Even on a personal level, you can join a gym if that's something you like to do. You could join the PTO of your child's school and get involved there, and that's another great way to give back, to make sure that you're directly impacting your child's education and what they're doing in their community. You could sign up at your local library. I mean, there are clubs everywhere for everything, especially even Facebook groups. Say you don't want to be in person, right? You can join special Facebook groups to, it could be cats. I know that sounds simple and silly, but if cat videos bring you joy, I mean, who doesn't like a good scroll through Insta or Facebook of crazy cat videos just to make you laugh or smile, right? So it's important that we look for these communities, whether we're in person, whether online. There are so many resources available to you to look and be a part of something so that you can be happy. Whether it's like something super important, like I said, where you're doing the advocacy piece, or something as simple as joining a group that likes to taste wine on the weekend or whatever. I think it's important to use that connection to ground you and remind you why we're here, right? We're not here. You're going to have that rainbow. You never see the rainbow if you don't have a little rain, right? So that's reality. So we have to embrace the rain to get to that rainbow. And I really feel that that's done through connecting with people in different spaces. And so I think I shared a couple of those resources. Obviously, even reading. I know that you're like, well, how can I connect to others through reading? Well, in reading, you're connecting with the characters. They could be fictional or they could be real life, but you're still connecting with something on some level for some reason, right? Whether it's fantasy or not, it could open a door for you, right? So I think it's important to connect to any person, whether they're fictional or real, so that you can connect to a person to kind of bring you that joy. And if that's you thinking you're, Harry Potter and you're in there, then that's fine, right? If that's bringing you joy, I'm not judging you, right? So I think that's important to look for things that bring you joy through connection, whether fictional or in present day life. And so I think I provided a few of those resources. And if anyone has any questions, I encourage you to seek me on LinkedIn or Instagram. It's just Nicole Stephenson. It's Nicole_Stephenson. You can search me on both that way. And hopefully I provided a little bit of happiness for you today and reminded you that it's okay to scroll for cat videos, and encourage you to please volunteer in your community. If you see something broken, you don't have an obligation to fix it, but I want you to know that every small person counts. And I'll share in closing one story with you that makes that difference. So it's the starfish story. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. I have it laminated. It's in my office on my wall. But it basically is a story about a young child on the beach, and it's covered in starfish. And, she's watching, and there's an older man on the beach, and he's throwing the starfish into the ocean one at a time. And the kid's like, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm trying to throw the starfish back before they die. And she's like, there's hundreds of starfish here. Like, you're never going to make a difference. And he threw the one starfish back and said, it made a difference to that one. And I think that that's the really important lesson, because sometimes we hesitate to get involved because we think that what we're doing isn't significant, right? It's a small grain of sand in a very large beach. But the key is that each of us, if we didn't hesitate and we each did a small part, it would collectively be a huge difference. So I just want to leave you with that today, that, you can find your happiness by helping others, by knowing that no matter who you help, no matter how many you help, it still makes a difference. And so thank you for that. And I hope you all have a really great year. 2024 is here. So with that in mind, I hope you find happiness in the little moments of 2024. And I guess that's it.